that we are running here at Lace Partners. My name is Chris Howard, and I'm joined by a couple of our experts and a friend of ours and our payroll team. It's Bronwynn Gordon from Sage as well. Bronwynn, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Looking forward to today, and thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's absolutely lovely to have you on, and Charlie and Julie joining us as well. Now, Julie, you obviously work in our payroll team.
Yeah.
Charlie, you're part of our AI practice. And what we wanted to do today, just as part of this webinar series, this is the first of a series, if you like, of different activities that we'll be doing, because the three of us had a conversation about the role that AI is playing amongst payroll teams. And what's really, really interesting, I think, is that you guys mapped it out as almost like a journey, a life cycle. So what we're doing today is just taking the opportunity to look at that first part of the life cycle. And we've asked, obviously, Bronwynn to give some perspectives from a Sage perspective as well. We'll cover a couple of questions as part of this webinar. I've popped them on the screen, but I think we'll go in a little bit more detail than what we've shown there. And rather than this becoming a show which is death by PowerPoint, what we'll do is we'll take this off in a second, and then I'll pose a couple of questions, if that's all right. Cool. So with that in mind, I think we should probably kick off, I guess, starting off, Jules, with you, and I guess really significant AI payroll myths. What are the significant AI payroll myths that you guys often come across?
Yeah, I think there's two main myths that we quite often hear repeatedly from our clients and in the industry. And the first one is that AI is going to take our jobs, which, I can absolutely say that's not true. If anything, it's going to enhance and make our jobs more effective and more efficient and just working from a more strategic level. And then the second one is that actually AI can't be trusted. I can say this as a former payroller, we typically like to understand what's going on in our world. We like to have a little bit of control, and AI feels like you're relinquishing some of that control, but actually what it's doing is enhancing what you have already. So yes, you have to check it, and yes, you have to watch out for hallucinations, and it's not 100% accurate in certain aspects of it, but I think as a premise, it's something we should all be looking towards.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's, Bronwynn, if I can bring you in on this for a little bit of, I guess, a Sage perspective and how you guys are using AI in your payroll team at the moment. So can you let the watchers of this webinar just give us a little bit of a flavour as to how your payroll team is using AI at the moment?
So it's a really good question. And I think, Julie, I totally get what you're saying. And I think a lot of people do feel like that. AI is going to take our jobs. It's not. We are going to enhance. So, we in Sage are literally scratching the surface of this. We all get caught in our BAU, run on the mill, running payrolls, and sometimes it's just left to the side. But we are in 2026. What are we doing? So we're scratching the surface. We're looking at Copilot. We're using Power BI reports, payroll approval reports, change requests. We are trying to get into that market of doing things more automations. Copilot has been brilliant. You've got teams across the world. You can use it to transcribe, so you actually really engage in those conversations instead of taking notes. And translation is a really great thing as well. Is you speak in English, and the person on the other side hears in their language, which makes a really big difference to the conversations. So we are really just scratching the surface, but it is exciting, and we really are rearing to go.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really interesting point. And there's lots of people think about AI from a technology point of view often, but it's the way in which we are working, which is changing things. And with that as well, there's obviously some foundations that organizations need to be thinking of. I know, Charlie, you've talked about this in some of the previous blogs that we've written. Obviously, we've got our trusted framework that we talked about, but let's zone in specifically from a payroll perspective. And can you give me some thoughts around some of the data foundations that organizations need to put in place?
Yeah, of course. I think data really, why we've started with data is that I think for payroll professionals, it's a common pain point. Often data is seen as the problem, but I think for payroll professionals, I recognise that while it's part of the problem, it's often the people and process components where things fall down. I think an example of why getting the data foundations is so important within payroll is if you're in a global organisation, you have lots of different markets across different countries. In one market, an element might be an allowance, and in another market it might be an overtime component, and there's often a lack of alignment across different markets. I think the three pillars that we would talk about, and to make it very tangible for those listening in, is around three pillars being standardization, accessibility, and governance. So across those three, from a standardization perspective, payroll teams can now be looking at, can we get a data dictionary in place? Can we standardize how we're looking at different data terms and grouping those? From a pay element perspective, having a pay element taxonomy in place that's consistent across all your markets. For accessibility, it's about having a view of data residency. So where is data across your landscape? What markets and countries is it being processed in? Where is it sitting? Also having those access controls in place and having a clear data architecture. And then finally, on the governance, again, going back to those access controls, but also just having a clear data ownership model. What's governing that data? Who owns it? Where does it sit? And what are the checks and balances in place to make sure that data is high quality and it's secure? We often hear the concern about GDPR, and that's really important for teams that are starting off on this journey.
Yeah, Bronwynn, I'd love to just get your thoughts on this, because the purpose of obviously today is to almost talk about the kind of where people start in their journey, and I do want to get to kind of where to start on the AI adoption. But if we can just pause just on that data piece and kind of where your head's at, from a Sage perspective, and some of the challenges that Charlie talked about there. Did any of that resonate with you? This idea of where does the data sit? Who owns it? What's the residency? Should we put a data dictionary in place? Is that stuff that's kind of on your roadmap, or you're thinking about, or you've already done?
No, 100%. It is all valid concerns, and it resonates totally with us. I think just to put it out there to everybody's listening, don't go and put all your stuff on ChatGPT. Make sure that you use the right stuff within that is company endorsed. You hear so many stories. We are the holders of really confidential, sensitive information. So you've got to make sure that your company has the right tools to use, and it is in the safe and secure space. So 100% agree. And it's hard. It's a big responsibility, and it's hard to make sure that it is all secure and correct. I think it goes back to Julie's control point earlier. It's Lewinkish. I can't even say that word now. The control of it and leaving the AI to do it. But it's really, really important that we do have the correct security privacy measures in place.
Yes, definitely. So let's talk about where people start, because there might be some payroll teams watching this particular webinar, this short webinar that we're doing, thinking, we're kind of already trying a few things. We're already dipping our toe in. We're already in the process. There are organisations, obviously, that are very advanced in the way in which they have adopted different AI practices, the ways in which it's working. But from your perspective, have you got any kind of bits of advice just from the education or the process that you guys have gone through, in where to start as a payroll team?
Yeah. There is so much out there. It's the conversations I've had internally is, where do I start? What systems are out there that I can use? So what I did is I went to our internal IT team. We've also got an automations team. I went out and I said, guys, help me understand. We had a workshop in January, and I had somebody come in and speak to us like we dummies, tell us all that Copilot can do. And that was the highlight of the 3-day workshop, was that automation, that Copilot stuff. We created figures of ourselves, Power Ranger payroll figures. It was just phenomenal on what it can do, changing the way we work with our emails, Excel documents. It's just really, it was so exciting to see how my team, the managers, were really embracing this change, and I know it was getting cascaded down to the wider team, so it was really, really important. But I would start internally, speak to IT. They were the experts. They will help you along the journey, and just explore what's out there.
Love it. And Jules, from your perspective, and I guess from a LACE perspective, are there any kind of advice bits that we would give to organizations when they're coming to you guys as a payroll team, or the AI practice that we have around adoption?
Yeah, I think to build on, I guess, what Charlie was saying, and also Bronwynn, get your foundations right first. Like any kind of piece of technology, AI is not going to fix if you've got bad data, if you've got, you know, loads of different wage types, like you were saying. So, you know, I'd recommend looking at like RACEs if you have them in place. Look at your processes. Are they standardized? Do they need to be globalized? So, like, get all of that right first. But in the meantime, use it like Bronwynn was saying. So, a lot of organizations would have like a payroll inbox where several people have access to, with probably hundreds of emails in it on a daily basis. You can quickly go in as the user of that inbox and say, right, tell me what's urgent, tell me what I've been CC'd in, tell me what my actions for today are. So that's supporting payroll, but it's obviously not quite in the payroll tech space, but it's definitely helping the teams get more efficient and spend time on other bits.
Nice. Okay. I don't want to cut you out of this kind of, because I do want to move on to like where do the teams start, but like just from an adoption point, is there anything just there that you're kind of thinking, maybe have a little think about?
I think Bronwynn made a number of really nice points around adoption, but also where to start for teams. I think for a lot of people, when they're starting this journey, there's a lot of fear. They don't know where to go. They don't know what systems they want to go with. That's often one of the biggest barriers of it seeming like a big transformation that will involve investment in new technology. I think that the Bronwynn and the team are a really great example of what you can do with what you've got already, and working, you know, within your existing tech suite and saying, what have we got here that we could switch on? What could we trial with? I think to pick out some of those examples further, it's the principles of starting small, you know, taking a use case-based approach. So, but where could we use this today? Test it, and then that's where you'll see that adoption, where people can see the time saving, the experience improvement, and that's where the adoption will really start to take off. Without it having to seem like a prolonged and significant transformation. There are some opportunities that are much closer to home, and that's a great place to start.
Yeah, Bronwynn, I've heard some yapping, so any sort of build on that from what Charlie was talking about?
No, I was just thinking and nodding and going, yep. Regarding the start small. There is so much out there. Don't try and conquer the world. Just start small. You've got to build your confidence, your knowledge within the team, and you've got to bring them along on that journey. So there's so much to learn. Just start small, bite-sized chunks.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And just as we wrap up then today for this very short webinar, Jules, any kind of final bits on where to start? Anything that you we haven't already perhaps plugged?
Not necessarily, I think, on where people need to start, but I think go with the change. Payrollers are typically really adaptable people, because if you think of all the changes that always happen, you've got your annual legislation changes. We've just had auto enrolment in Ireland. We've obviously had auto enrolment in the UK for a while. RTI, you know, I could go on and on and on. We've got payrolling benefits coming in. Tech changes, payrollers are adaptable, so this is just the next change that's just going to bring you on to the next level of your payroll journey.
Love it. So we're coming to the end now, kind of giving us a little bit of a summation there of some of the points. If you're watching this video, if you found it interesting, if you like this format as well, this shorter kind of webinar formats, because we've run webinars before that can be an hour long, that go into quite a lot of detail. The design of this is really just to give a little bit of a bite-sized chunk, and then if you want to find out a little bit more information, or if there's something that either myself or Charlie or Julie or Bronwynn have talked about, then we can certainly connect you as well. But Bronwynn, thank you very much for joining us today.
No, thank you. It's been great. Thank you.
It's been lovely. Jules, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Charlie, thank you very much.
As always.
If you would like to find out more information about LACE Partners, about the services that we provide from an AI perspective or from a payroll perspective, please feel free to reach out. But from myself, the team, and Bronwynn, thank you very much. And we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.